we've looked at other tabs that you can use in Fiddler. Now we're going to focus on things you can do at the web session level. In other words, a given request and response. First thing you can do is you can mark one. So if there are particular things in a trace that you want to call out to someone else, you can particularly go mark with specific colors those sessions in the list. So for instance, if you found a particular spot and said, now why is this CSS file being requested, you could mark that row so when the next person opened up that capture, it would be very clear which item you were referring to. You can also add comments, so you can go on any particular web session and say, I think this is due to whatever. You can go add that comment in on that web session, which will be saved with the capture. You can also look at the properties of that specific web session, which we'll see. You can see the sizes, what the caching rules are. Here's where you can see the IP addresses. So if you want to know specific things about the client and server, for instance, in a web farm, you can look at the IP addresses by looking here at the properties. You can save individual web sessions. So I often use this when I go to a particular page. So on an internal, if I went and said I need that same image to use somewhere else, I can actually take the response, save it directly out of Fiddler, and put it onto disk, which is very convenient. I can also do comparisons between web sessions. So if I had a series of requests for the same page, one of them works and one of them failed, I can select those two, the one that worked, the one that failed, and say I want to compare these, and it will bring up by default WinDiff if you have it installed on your machine. We'll show you how to configure that, but it will do a comparison for you between those two requests. So you can see what is it that's different about these that makes the one work and the other one fail. Another convenient thing, you can add a screenshot. So in the case where you want to show what it looked like in a web browser for a given response, you can actually hit a button to say I want to add a screenshot. It will save that screenshot as a session and then later in your actual capture file. Now let's look at some of the capabilities around a particular web session, which again is just a request and a response. We'll open up the browser, make our request. We see the list of requests. I'm going to just stop capturing for the moment. Now some of the things you can do as you right click, we'll see if we want to, we can mark particular sessions. So if I said I want to mark all the things that I'm confused about potentially in orange, then as I save that and send it to someone else, they'll see all the particular sessions that I had marked. We can also add a comment. So if I came to this one, I could say, you really should use a minified version. Hit OK. Depending on how they have Fiddler configured, in this case by default it'll be in your comments over on the side. We can show the properties of a particular request. So if I right click, I can go to properties and I can see a lot of detailed information about exactly what went back and forth, what the IP addresses were, and other information that's useful to the request. If I had a particular file that I know I wanted to save, I can right click and say save response. In this case, I don't want the entire response with the HTTP headers. I just want what was actually in the body. So now I can save that off and drop it into my temp folder and use it wherever I need to use it. The comparison feature is one of the very useful features in Fiddler too. If I had two requests and wanted to see exactly what the difference between these were. One of the things we need to do is to get windiff.exe. If that's what you want to use as a tool that's often installed in Windows, find it where it's located already on your disk and make sure it's part of your path, or put it into the Fiddler, make a copy and put it into the Fiddler 2 folder. I went back and recreated the two requests that had the tampering I did to see the Spanish version. So I've got two sessions now. And something I haven't shown yet, but one of the inspectors is a web view to see what this would look like in a web browser. So if I wanted to see specifically what was different about these two requests that made it respond so differently, I can go select the two of them and say compare. Now it's going to open up the WinDiff tool. In this case, you'll see that the GET request, everything was the same in both of the headers, but the one was ENUS, the other one was ES. Since E was consistent, it's just showing the differences. But this would show me that it was because of that accept language header. That's why I got a different response back. So if I go back into Fiddler and I said, I'd really like to show what it originally looked like when it was in the browser and when I send this capture file, I can take a screenshot, but if I hit this immediately, it's going to show Fiddler. I can hold Shift, hit the camera. I can go back to the web page. Now that's going to take a screenshot and it's going to actually drop that into Fiddler. So now you can see that screenshot got applied, so it showed, hey, this is what it looked like. I can add comments to it, etc. And then I can save this capture and send it to someone, and they can see exactly what it looked like in IE at the time that I was having the particular issue.